Hi everyone, I'm Juan Montalban. It's nice to be here with you, although I will join you later for a discussion afterwards. But first, I will give my talk, which is called When the Earth is the Other, Transcultural Dialogues in Critical Interplanetary Design. So first, I will share some three general arguments to broaden up our lenses on what we are thinking the planet Earth is and the assumptions or things that we are taking for granted when we think of our planet. So the first argument will be that the Earth is the other, or has a different meaning, when we think of nature not as equivalent in meaning to Earth, but as a broader landscape within which Earth coexists, where Earth is one among other entities. Argument number two will be that the Earth can be thought as the other when we acknowledge the existence of non-modern and non-Western inhabitants to whom Gaia, Geo, or Earth are foreign concepts, in the same way that Pacha, Ao, or Keyawita are to Western cultures. And argument number three, the Earth is the other when we consider the possible existence of interplanetary species, challenging the notions that humans have of nature, society, and our definitions and relationships with planet Earth. If nature is that which sits outside of the human social realms, then an interplanetary civilization wouldn't be also nature? If they are nature, then aren't humans also nature by comparison? In any case, what is it that we are actually differentiating when we use the term nature and society? And from that point and from those questions is that I present 5 narratives for revisiting some concepts and mythology that we usually assume as true. But here we'll be seeing that there might actually more nuances towards these general ideas. So narrative number 1, Earth is not nature. What I mean by this is that planet Earth, as we know it today, is both natural and social. It is actually social natural. We can see this in the Anthropocene, and here it is depicted in the main page of the Nature Journal. This is from 2015. And as many of us know, the definition of planet Earth is being modified by the human activity on it. That also it makes evident that planet Earth, as it is today, is actually a social natural entity. Narrative number 2, we also are not a society. Humanity and the human condition goes beyond the social realm. We are actually a nature society. You can see this in these interesting depictions of, for instance, a project from the Urban Theory Lab called The Urbanization of the Amazon, making evident how social construction, social structures, social organization is actually conditioned as well by so-called natural territories such as the Amazon rainforest. So we can see that, for one, the Amazon rainforest also functions as a form of social natural infrastructure, providing support and sustaining lifestyles around all the cities surrounding this territory, but at the same time, also in a larger scenario of globalization, how all these cities are actually dependent of this natural entanglement. Narrative number 3, we are not modern. We are transcultural, we are pluriversal. We have diverse ways of understanding society, nature, human, and our relationships with Earth. This is one example of this. This is an example of water sowing and harvesting systems from Quechua knowledge and Quechua societies, where they, in the image in the left, you can see how they relate to the territory, creating these amunas, which will be understood as water infiltration trenches that creates a better relationship with the territory and also with water. And this is particularly important because this is an example of how diverse can we think or approach our own definitions of humans in relation to the territory, in relation to the planet, in relation to what we call Earth or Pacha or other different ways of understanding our relationship with it. Argument number 4, we are not the most intelligent. Intelligence, beyond its anthropocentric understanding, is not something unique to humans, not even unique to animals. Here I brought an interesting case from popular culture. This is from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and there is an excerpt, a quote that reads, "Man has always assumed that he is more intelligent than dolphins because he has achieved so much, while all the dolphins have ever done was muck about in the water, having a good time. But conversely, The dolphins have always believed that they were far more intelligent than man for precisely the same reasons. And this is depicted in the book as approach to the most intelligent species on Earth, and suddenly all the dolphins disappeared because they were kind of safe from planet Earth instead of humans. And this is an interesting example of fungi, particularly the smile molds, and how it simulates or replicates complicated structures of networks that resemble the actual Tokyo railway networks. But also, even beyond planet Earth, we can also think in terms of what intelligence means and what it means for humans to think of themselves as intelligent. In this bigger scheme of things, there are also questions of how we relate to the possibility of other beings that also practice forms of engagement or relationship with the context of surroundings. For that, I prepared some general arguments. So we might think we might not be the unique to be unique or special because of our particular intellect, but certainly we are particularly good at exerting influence over our surroundings. Hence, we are a social natural species in that we are capable of entangling our social structures with diverse territories, significantly modifying them, often involving decision-making and creating impact, a process we will usually refer to as designing. However, we also seem to be insatiable for this form of power. Why do we want to conquer everything? Have we always been like this? To whom are we trying to prove we are capable of this? May we find other beings that share the same trait? We have to prove to ourselves that we can do better, and we can be better. We can have better social natural relationship with planet Earth and other territories, changing our narrative for our right to exist. We can stop chains of oppression that subjugate others, be it people, species, entities, or planet Earth itself. Finally, final argument that I will share today is that we are not actually looking into the future. That's something that we always think, particularly in the field of design. And why is that so? The future cannot be seen by us humans. We only trace signals from the past to interpret what is about to come. For this, there's an interesting piece of knowledge that comes from the Quechua people, to whom the future is actually conceptualized as being at our backs, not in front of us. So it's not somewhere we are going towards. It's actually something that comes from the back and arrives towards us. In a way, I can example this is through this image in which we are in a boat and we are actually facing the backwards of the boat. And based on the traces that we see occurring today and that becoming quickly the past, we can then interpret where are we going. And this is more closely related to what actually happens. We don't really can predict what it is to happen. This is evident. We have seen this with the pandemic, for instance, recently. We only presume things that could happen based on the past, based on things that we are actually looking at, that are happening in the present, and are quickly becoming our past, in the same way that we are presuming or trying to predict where a boat is going based on the trace it leaves in the water. One interesting example of this is this recent book called The Era of Global Risk, an Introduction to Existential Risk Studies, that tries to understand which signals are in the present times that gives a depiction of where could we be heading towards. And this is particularly interesting or relevant for designers because it gives us a nuance of actually what are we actually doing, and how can we also rethink what we are doing as the practice of design. In that regard, we also, with a group of colleagues at the Interplanetary Design Division, developed a framework for thinking in terms of what designing within planet Earth means, particularly in the scope where planet Earth is also a territory that is traversed by a larger landscape that involves also interplanetary or exoplanetary dimensions or other territories that are currently being also quite strongly addressed by different activity by human enterprises mostly, right, in terms of how these new missions towards the moon are approaching soon. So finally, I will end my presentation by giving a final argument that we might as well think that we could rethink what we currently call design. If we particularly understand that design is mostly a Western definition and we are approaching a planetary approach or even interplanetary approach towards design, we definitely have to approach a more transcultural perspective. So I propose this term that opens up this possibility, moving from design to transcend. Transcend meaning transcultural approaches that trans-semanticize and transmaterialize In other words, transcultural approaches that provides a more nuanced meaning to the ideas we have and more nuanced approaches into the actions that we do and how we actually entangle ourselves with territory, how we create these social natural links or bondings with the surroundings we inhabit. And with that, I just thank you all and hope that you found these provocations, thoughts, arguments motivating for further discussion. Thank you very much.